New Jersey is evolving as a place to call home, as urban centers are renovated and once quiet suburbs begin to bristle with new development, new businesses, and new residents. Perhaps nowhere in the Garden State is this change more strikingly evident than in the 9th Legislative District, touching Ocean, Atlantic, and Burlington counties. Folks who set down roots have a broader income spectrum, and their lives often extend beyond the borders to their places of work and other interests. The longtime conveyors of this evolution to the halls of the State Assembly are Republicans Diane Gove and Brian Rumpf. Ms. Gove's lengthy resume includes terms on the Long Beach Township Commission and service as mayor, the Ocean County Advisory Committee on the Status of Women, and in the Assembly, the Higher Education and Military and Veterans Affairs Committees and the Joint Committee on Public Schools. Mr. Rumpf's local roots, as I'm sure you know if you're in Little Egg Harbor, or the Little Egg Harbor Township Committee, and a term as mayor. And in the Assembly, the Committees on Regulatory Oversight and Reform and Federal Relations, Telecommunications and Utilities, and both co-chair the Assembly Policy Committee. They seek new terms at the State House, and in the next few minutes they will build their case for your vote. Welcome, both of you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having us here.
Let's start with some of the legislation that you're motioning through, which one of which really became a magnet for other primary sponsors and co-sponsors, and that's the one I want to start with, which is the state rental assistance set-asides for veterans. That was a huge success for you.
Certainly it was, and thank you, Tom, for allowing us to be here with you. And just as an add-on to your preliminary remarks, we are truly blessed to have the diverse district that we have. The particular legislation that you're referring to, the add-ons for the veterans, I think it can rightfully be said that our district is proud to always have put veterans at the top of the list. We recognize the sacrifices that our veterans over the years have made for us, and truly we have to be cognizant of the need to give back when they return home to New Jersey. This particular program gives them a leg up when we're dealing with where they can reside and at what cost can they re-enter society as they try to rebuild their lives on the civilian side. I truly believe that there is very little that's more important than ensuring that we take care of our veterans, particularly when they return home after service.
Have you seen the fruits of this start to take root yet?
I do believe so. It's just starting out, but I think so. It's getting the word out to our veterans, and we're working with veterans organizations. So veterans are very important to us, as excuse me, Brian has said. Our district, Ocean County, has more veterans than in the state. My dad was a World War II vet, so I grew up with the patriotism of honoring vets, and I mean, I'm blessed that we are able to have it. That's why we're here today, because freedom isn't always free, and they have given, some have given the ultimate sacrifice, but they gave time to help our country, and no questions asked to go out there. So I always grew up with that, and then as a teacher, I saw as my students, a high school teacher, my students graduated, and many of them, men and women, went off to serve their country, and when they come back, I'm proud of them, very, very proud, and thank them. And but they need help coming back when you hear that, to get back into I don't want to say society, but get back into life. It's a whole new ballgame, and we need to help them in every way. And I think our district has done that. The senator sits on the Senate Military Veterans Affairs. I sit on the Assembly. And when you hear this, I think it's probably one of the most bipartisan committees in the Assembly and in the whole legislature. But it is blessed because you hear the stories from these veterans and your heart goes out. And you want to help them in every way. They need it. They serve their country. Some, as I said, the ultimate sacrifice. But these people coming back, they have a lot to give to our society. We have another bill that we're very proud of, the Vet Teach. Mm-hmm. And Stockton is very involved with it, and we've been down there where who would you want not vet, or what's the, I'm struggling with the words, but wouldn't a vet be wonderful for your children, having them to be their teacher? So we're trying to help them and do it in a fast-paced track. So Stockton's been working with it. We have vets graduating and going on to teach school. And I mean, I think that's wonderful. What a role model for your students, for your child. So that's wonderful. You see them, and I hear this living on Long Beach Island. We have been able to get it past that a vet and a current service person are able to get beach badges without having to, you know, the municipalities have been working wonderfully that they do this. And the people come and just say thank you. You know, it's so nice to have the family that we don't have to pay for the beach badges. So it is rewarding, committee. It is rewarding because these individuals have gone out preserving democracy and coming back and need every help they can get. I could go along tons of stuff, but I don't want to take on that too much right now. But thank you.
And then there is the legislation that's been winnowed down to vet is a vet is a vet. Mm-hmm. That's been a passion of yours in the whole 9th District for some time. Want to go over just the tenets of that?
Of course, and you're correct, Tom. It has been a passion of the 9th Legislative District going back to Senator Len Connors. I was blessed to have worked with Len for my first 5 or 6 years in the state legislature. We would go around speaking to the different veterans groups. The complaint, if you will, that we would so routinely hear from veterans is that there are distinctions that are made between times of service. If they don't fall into one of those blocks of service time, meaning the Korean War, certain time periods within the Vietnam War era, or Iraqi freedom, and the battles that we see being waged today in Afghanistan and Iraq, they are not treated and given all the opportunities that other veterans are given. Our Vet is a Vet bill quite simply would ensure that if you are a veteran of the armed services, regardless of when you in fact served, you would be entitled to all of the rights and privileges that the law provides to any veteran.
I agree totally. That's very passionate.
Let me ask you one thing, because we're talking about legislation that is practically a no-brainer. And for practically all of your time, and I'm sure all of yours in the Assembly, you've been the underdog. It's a Republican group in a Democrat-controlled body of government. So what, and I've asked this of other people, I get varying answers, what does it take to, I mean, your bills constantly get to committee, no question about it. What does it take to get it past that, to a point where maybe not everybody's on board with you? How do you convince them and get that thing signed into law?
Tom, there's enormous frustration, and I will say that having served a number of years in the minority party. Thank goodness, though, that we have a majority party and a minority party, because one is a check on the other. Insofar as advancement of the bills are concerned, if it is truly a good bill, the way that we attempt to see that bill advance is to go speak to our friends across the aisle. And they are friends. Believe it or not, we are a district that has bipartisan roots. Some of our best legislation you will see sponsored, co-sponsored by Democrats, such as Senator Jeff Van Drew down in Cape May County, or a number of North New Jersey legislators. It is the ability to convince our counterparts that may be of the other party that our bills are legitimate and serve the best interest of the people of the entire state of New Jersey that will have those bills be advanced. It is oftentimes a tough push, I will tell you, but you did reference the bills first going into committee. In my view, when we're in Trenton, The most important thing we do is state our case while we're on the committees. And by that I mean, if I am sitting on the oversight committee and there is a proposal to do X, Y, Z, I, as a member of the minority party, have an obligation to make sure that we truly flush out what the bill encompasses. If it's a bill that's worthy of bipartisan support, we need to put that on the record. And that truly is where we make friends. That is where we're able to ensure that the interests of not only the 9th Legislative District, but the entire state are advanced by doing the good work necessary to convince our counterparts across the aisle that the bills are legitimate and valid.
Brian is a very thoughtful individual. You're gregarious. I'm sure that you don't have an enemy out there. Like, what is your experience?
I'm not sure. I've had a couple of tangles, but to get anything done, you have to compromise. And we see that. I'm not going to go any further. But I think that's the good part, that if it's a truly good bill on both sides, you need to work together. It's a bipartisanship with the vets. But there's some other ones that you really, you have to talk, your friend, that, you know, we have friends. You know, it's not the enemy, the other side. Yes, is there partisanship? You're not going to deny that. But when a bill comes down, if you feel passionate about a bill, and you need the other side because we are the minority party, you have to work with them and sometimes be humbled by them and say, okay, I'll be second prime instead of co-prime, or I'll be co-prime, I'll be second prime, you can be first prime, but it's not about me. It's about the people of our district or the people of New Jersey. And if you feel that bill is worthwhile, it's not about you. It's about getting it through. And you do have to work together.
I know that everybody in the 9th District Legislative team was very supportive of 3 measures that directed revenues to the Department of Environmental Protection for conservation and recreational development. Now, there's a great deal of preserved land already in Ocean County alone. 60% or more is actually set aside. So how does this help your district, Atlantic Burlington, too?
Conservation and open space helps us tremendously. One of the most important attributes of the 9th Legislative District sits only a few miles away, and that's the Barnegat Bay. We have long been advocates of the Barnegat Bay. When you speak of the 60% open space currently enjoyed by Ocean County at the moment, and hopefully that number will rise, every little bit of open space adds to the integrity of the bay because there's that much less washing into the bay by virtue of the natural state of the lands that surround it. And it's not just land that happens to be 1, 2, 3 blocks away from the bay. The headwaters, the Riverwood Park in Tom's River, the area in the Forked River Mountains, all of those areas which we are making every attempt to preserve contribute to what we hope will be a healthy bay in the future. We have, as an example, just a couple hundred miles away, the Chesapeake Bay, and we have seen the devastation caused by the bay dying, the Chesapeake Bay that is. We're not there yet with the Barnegat Bay, and now we are seeing signs that the Barnegat Bay is actually recovering by virtue of the efforts that we've put forth, whether it be the fertilizer legislation, the governor's 10-point plan when he assumed office, or numerous other measures, beginning with open space and probably ending with open space, because truly there's the very best thing you can do with land if you are looking to preserve Barnegat Bay is not to develop that land. And we can't forget that lesson as we go forward.
Maybe this is a good launch point for discussion on development, because I know you've seen it on Long Beach Island, and I know you're seeing it in Little Egg. And in fact, everywhere south of the Thames, if you just drive Route 9, it's a whole different landscape than it was even 10 years ago. the whole area is developed into a new region, because it used to be people who just either retired here and stayed here, or grew up here and stayed here, and it was local. Now it's more cosmopolitan, and there's only so much room to build. So what are your views on development in this area? There is still room to build, but not much. Where do you draw the line? How are you looking at it? What are your preferences?
Well, I think it's a combination of the state, the county, and the municipality, that everybody needs to have a share in it. Obviously, the municipality, they have to look at their long-range plans and how they're going to be able to sustain the land and the people. The county and the state, of course, with all the permitting and things, and I think everybody has to look at it, and it is tough. You have to look around and say, how far do we want it? And the county does have, has a the planning commission and everything, and they work together with the municipalities as well as with the state. So I think at this point, I think people are looking at it because it's becoming so overgrown, especially on Long Beach Island, or not just Long Beach Island, let's say the Barrier Islands. They're starting to look at things differently, especially after Superstorm Sandy. And again, as Brian had said, we have to preserve our open land. It's not right here. It's in towards Jackson and Plumstead, and further in, or in Burlington, because that's where the waters are going to come down to preserve, like Barnegat Bay. Plus, in all this, we have to watch how we're building on the bulkheading, because that is an issue for Barnegat Bay. So it's a big thing that everybody has to partnership in and say, what do we want? What do we want about this? How far do we want to go? Do we want to just have development here? Because then there's no businesses. You see it on the island, or the Barrier Islands. Every space is not business anymore. It's housing, and I think we have to get a grip on what do we want to do. And I think that's everybody has to partnership that. See, what do we want to do? It's a beautiful area. Let's preserve it. And I see that with Green Acres, Blue Acres, and I think more and more towns are buying into that they want to preserve what they have, so it doesn't get gobbled up by, and we see it. As you said, I've lived here my whole life. When I drive through, I think, oh my goodness, here's a housing development, here's one. Even as I'm driving out to Trenton, all of a sudden I'm here in the Pines, and here's a new housing development. That's okay, but when do we stop? Mm-hmm. And how do we do it? I think it's something that everybody has to get together and say, what do we want out of our town? Do we want it to be an urban area, or do we want to keep it a beautiful environmental gem?
And that development, or however far it takes us, is going to involve more services. It's
Absolutely.
going to involve more families.
More it's schools, families,
And
your
that's exactly
utilities,
where I'm
the water. We have to you need more water. Then you have to have the garbage. Your sanitation, and brings in the whole thing on sustainability. Mm-hmm. And I see more and more towns looking at things, having a special area on sustainability. So I think I think the towns, it really starts with your towns. And I think I see the towns becoming more aware of things and trying to start preserving it. And then if we can pick up with the county, and then the state has to obviously join in.
Let's discuss for a second, especially from your vantage point through education, the future of education as you're seeing it from the halls of the legislature. You've got a public school system that is being siphoned by charter schools. You've got teachers who used to depend on equipment and supplies being there for them, now going out and buying it themselves. You've got private school systems, you've got for-profits that didn't exist before, and it's a crazy quilt. Do you see any advantage to any one of these dominating, or do you see all of these systems as being part of a mesh that can be organized in a more coherent manner.
Well, I'm a product of the public school system. I taught for 32 years in a public school system. I love teaching. So I really look at the public school system as your gem that it should be, and the others revolving around it. I think before you start putting money, public money into charter schools and other things, let's get our public schools organized first and get them fully funded so teachers don't have to buy things out of their own money. And to help well, school funding is an issue which we could be here all day. We truly believe that in our area, that in the whole state of New Jersey, there's 33 districts that get 65%. Well, we're always vying to get money for our area down here and suburban and rural schools. So we need to get our funding organized for that. Fair funding for everyone. But with education now, I just think that we need to concentrate on public education. And as a teacher, things are changing. I see that, you see it, you could ask about the park. I believe that teachers should be able to teach. Let them teach, not have to do all these other, I mean, you have to have standardized tests, I believe totally in that, but not to the degree that it's going.
Not teaching to the test.
That's correct, not teaching to the test, because the students aren't learning, they're learning what's in the test, for the test. They need to be creative, they need to think. And you have to have some kind of standardized, look, when we were growing up, you had standardized tests. You need that, you need some kind of measurement. And you need it to see about graduation, but so much has changed now that they put pressure on the students, and some students are not, testing gets them nervous. I was a proctor, and some of the students when I was proctoring, they were the ones they were seniors, and they were ready to get out if they didn't do well on that test. And they may not have graduated, and that's really stressful for kids because they know things, they have that skill. They may not have that skill to take that test, but we need to work with them and evaluate ways of testing them.
If you're in the next session and there is a movement to take on the Supreme Court decision that determined school funding as we know it today, are you willing to take that step?
Oh, absolutely. And I have a perspective from several different areas. My wife has been a public school teacher for the past 14 years, so I hear the stories about how the classroom works as she teaches the 3rd and the 4th grade down in Little Lake Harbor. I served on the Education Committee as well as the Higher Education Committee, and so I've heard from the stakeholders throughout the years in the Assembly. I truly believe that the funding formula we have now is flawed, but I will tell you that we in the 9th District have consistently been in support of public education. You may have heard of a lot of discussion concerning the Opportunity Scholarship Act. Despite that being a Republican initiative, we came out strongly against the Opportunity Scholarship Act, and it is our strong feeling that until the money is fully funded for the public schools to operate properly and as they should, we should not divert that money into charter schools or into other private education areas. I will also say that too many times we forget that year after year New Jersey is recognized as being #1 throughout the entire nation in terms of the quality of its public education, and our teachers deserve the credit for that. Not just my wife, all of the teachers. And we need to ensure that we don't mess things up, if you will, by imposing onerous testing requirements that have not been shown to have merit when it comes down to making education better. And that's what it's all about, making education better for the children that we need to teach to take our place in the years to come.
Historically, you haven't been shy about opposing measures such as that, which came from your own party. You've even disagreed with the governor on occasion, even before his popularity sank. is this going to be a valuable tool for you? Is this going to be something you're going to want to have to bring out in light of the political situation we're in now, where everything's in a state of flux?
I truly think so, and I would hope that people, when they look at the 9th Legislative District, Chris, Diane, and myself, they see three individuals that are there to serve them regardless of party. We were very pleased a number of years ago when Senator Len Connors was still with us to have an editorial from the Asbury Park Press describing our delegation as being the Mavericks, because you're right, we are not beholden to any interest in Trenton. If there should be a Governor Guadagno or a Governor Murphy, you know, we would hope that we see the interest of the state advance regardless of who has that seat. But rest assured, as long as we are there, Diane and I and Chris certainly in the Senate are going to be fighting to ensure that the people of the 9th District are well served.
Absolutely.
You just, before, and I want to get back to this before I forget, you brought up the Pinelands. And that's a very critical area right now. You've had two utility companies present proposals to the Board of Public Utilities. In fact, the Southern Reliability Link through New Jersey Natural Gas is undergoing a public hearing in Trenton in the next couple of weeks. There is a need for energy and utility supplies, water, as the development continues, and there's also a need to preserve what we've got and to preserve the pinelands. Now, granted, these are issues that are, these are projects that would be situated largely in already developed areas of the pinelands. Are you concerned about the industrialization of the ocean and the pinelands over time? It's kind of a slippery slope view of it. Do you see that as a potential problem, and are you looking at it as something to protect?
I think the pinelands need to be protected. I remember as a showing, well, everybody knows my age anyhow, but when I was young, they were talking about making the pineland, and that's really what started the whole thing with the pinelands, out in the pinelands and the airport. And that was, you know, no, we want to preserve our pinelands, and we do need to preserve our pinelands for a variety of reasons, you know, the natural habitat, the water supply. I think you have to mesh the two together. But, so we need to look, you know, protect our pinelands, but what you said about offshore, that's something that's really very important. Again, offshore, the whole New Jersey coast is, we should not have any drilling there. It's, I mean, we're very strong about that. I'm very strong about that. That offshore drilling, we do not want to, like you say, industrialize our coast. It's beautiful. It is economic base to New Jersey, and we do not want to destroy our fishing industry or anything. I mean, I guess I get it, down in the Gulf they have issues. I mean, you know, they have it down there, but we don't want to bring something in, at least for us at this point. And I believe I'm talking for Brian and Chris, that we all agree on that as well.
We have